Mike Pompeo. Good morning, sir.
Morgan, it's great to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you for dialing in. We have been talking, of course, about the elections that happened last night, about what happened to Rashida Tlaib getting censored in the House. And one of the things I was thinking about having you come on today, what we're really missing from this administration, which you would have had if you were still Secretary of State, is moral clarity. Moral clarity on what is right, on what is wrong, standing up for Israel. Can you give me your thoughts, sir, and sort of grade the administration on how they stand in standing up for Israel in this current conflict with Hamas?
Well, Morgan, when your central foreign policy thesis for 2.5 years is surrounding climate change, it makes it very difficult when evil raises its head, and the bad guys could see that America was on its back foot, that it was focused on things other, DEI, all the things that the Biden administration has put a focus on. And so now you see two wars. And I must say, I was listening closely to Secretary Blinken these last couple days. The moral clarity to which you referred appeared when he was talking about the images that he saw. He was clearly moved by them. Who could not be? But when he began to talk about how to resolve this, how to protect the people of Israel, how to protect the citizens living in Gaza, the Palestinians living in Gaza, he began to talk about the Palestinian Authority as the solution. And this is nonsense on stilts, and it is dangerous because it belies the morality, the evil that sits in the hearts of Abu Mazen and the leadership in the Palestinian Authority. It doesn't understand that the Islamic Republic of Iran and its IRGC terror force, they want to wipe the Jewish people off of the land. They want to eliminate Israel. They want to destroy America. And if you take your eye off that ball, if you begin to say, well, this is complicated, well, President Obama, right, we're all complicit, no one has clean hands, that's just not true. The United States is a fundamentally decent nation, and we stand for good things in the world. And so when you lose that moral clarity, you begin to see precisely what we saw happen now just over 4 weeks ago.
You're totally right, sir. And one of the things, that is confounding when you see people like Rashida Tlaib pretending that these attacks by these Hamas terrorists were somehow about finding a political solution for the Palestinian people. I mean, it takes away the true evil from what happened on October 7th. I was just reading about some of these Hamas terrorists, and from one of a European parliamentarian that viewed some of the unfiltered clips. And he said that these Hamas terrorists, calling their parents, crying with joy, said, "Mom, I killed 10 of them with my own hands. Their blood is still on my hands." He called his own mother to rejoice over the fact that he had just killed innocent Israeli Jewish civilians.
It's chilling. I've seen some of these videos as well. And Morgan, you and I spent time in the West Bank. We spent time in Ramallah talking to these folks. There was one thing was clear. They did not want a two-state solution. They wanted a one-state solution with Israel gone. I saw today a clip that the communications person for the White House talked about the absolute absence of clarity around whether the Golan Heights belongs to Israel.
Right.
These are the kind of things that tell the Ayatollah, that tell Nasrallah, who's the leader of Hezbollah, that tell them these folks are weak. They're not going to protect fundamental truths. Right? This is the more like fundamental truths. This is the rightful homeland of the Jewish people, that the U.S. Embassy ought properly to be in Jerusalem, that the Golan Heights is absolutely a central part of the nation of Israel. When you begin to round those corners and you can't speak basic truths, you start to see all the craziness you see in the streets of Europe and of the United States. You see precisely what Rashida Tlaib says when she talks about from the river to the sea. This is dangerous, not just for the people of Israel, but for Gulf state Arabs, for the Palestinians who are living in Gaza, and for people here in the homeland in the United States, too. Don't forget, several million folks crossed the border the last 2 years. We have no idea who they are. The Ayatollah may well know who some of them are.
Sir, you were, we were talking about how you were Secretary of State, but you were also the CIA director in the first 2 years of the Trump administration when we had to destroy the physical caliphate of ISIS in Iraq and Syria. They had started to cut off the heads of people. They were, wanted to be a threat to the American homeland. Are there any sort of comparable scenarios or anything that's similar to the fight that we had to take against ISIS to destroy their physical caliphate and and the fight that Israel has to take against Hamas to destroy their caliphate, so to speak, in Gaza.
Morgan, there's no doubt about that. It's a little bit different in the sense of for years and years and years, the Biden administration, the Obama administration before them funded this group. We didn't do that with ISIS. That makes this problem even more difficult, but the resolution has to be the same. Hamas has to be eliminated in its entirety, and that means every leader, every foot soldier, every piece of infrastructure, communications equipment, weapon systems, they must be eliminated in their entirety, and we cannot give them the spark of hope. What keeps them at this is the hope that one day they will, in fact, destroy the nation of Israel. And when you begin to talk about things like the Biden administration is showing daylight between the United States and Israel, you continue that spark of hope, and you encourage the Iranian regime.
You know, so we've been talking about Iran. One of the things that we know is that Iran and Hezbollah have sleeper cells in the United States. One of the things that we know is, as you said, almost 2 million gotaways over the border. We know that the Iranians have been caught at the border. And one of the things I hope you don't mind me bringing up that we know is that the Iranians are plotting at this moment to kill you, to take your life, your family's life, if they can. You have active threats because of your time as Secretary of State, as do other cabinet officials. So what is it going to take for this administration to admit that their Iran policy, which, by the way, is led by a guy who had his security clearance removed and is now under FBI investigation, what is it going to take for them to admit that this policy has been a failure and disastrous for the Middle East?
Oh, Morgan, I wish I knew, because I would try to make that happen. I hope that members of Congress, frankly, from both parties, understand that the first tool to push back against each of those threats you described, assassination campaigns against Americans, efforts to expand their regional footprint in Baghdad, in Yemen, and they're firing missiles today from Yemen into Saudi Arabia. They've now had dozens of attacks on American soldiers in Iraq.
Right.
The first rule has to be deny them wealth and resources. Put pressure on the regime by denying them money. And sadly, today, Morgan, as we sit here today, the Iranians will ship 3 to 4 million barrels of crude oil and receive cash for that crude oil. That is lazy. That is the failure to recognize that you got your policy wrong. And I hope they'll change it. I hope Congress will put in place a set of requirements for funding that tell the administration, no, you have to get this right. You must enforce the existing sanctions against this regime in Iran.
You know, sir, one of the things that you just mentioned were the attacks that are by Iranian proxies, militias, terrorist groups against U.S. forces. We know that there's been at least 40 attacks against our troops in the Middle East, especially in Iraq, over the last month. We know that there's at least 20, more. I've read varying reports of the number that are injured. I'm sure that will go up. You know, it's interesting whenever the Secretary of Defense, Austin, came out and said, that they had made these strikes against Syria, I kind of chuckled to myself because I was thinking of the response options that you used to give the President of the United States. And I don't know what the response options were that we gave Biden, but I know that these Syria strikes, which were the equivalent of thumping the Iranians in the nose, had to be at the bottom of the list of the options that were given to the President. What else do you think they need to do to respond to these attacks against U.S. troops?
Morgan, this is really pretty simple. And we saw this during our 4 years as well. The Iranians will push and push and push. So they came across the Euphrates River in Syria, supporting a Russian effort. We crushed them there. The Syrians, supported by Iran, used chemical weapons in Syria. We fired several dozen Tomahawk missiles. When Qasem Soleimani was seeking to kill more Americans in Iraq, we crushed him too. You have to impose costs on the regime. If you simply go after the proxies, if you simply say, you fired an artillery round at our embassy in Baghdad, we're going to go find the knucklehead who put the artillery in the air. That's the game they want us to play. You have to impose real costs on them. The president has a wide range of tools, not all of them overt kinetic. He has a wide range of tools to demonstrate and communicate to the Iranians, enough, stop attacking Americans. And, of all the things that have happened these last 4 weeks, the weakness in that response, I'm convinced, is giving Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis in Yemen and the Iranian militias, the Iraqi militias sponsored by Iran in Iraq, they have to be encouraged by this. And I know that the butcher of Baghdad, President Raisi, is saying, we have the Americans on their back foot. We're not going to give up until we choke them out.
You know, we have just less than a minute, sir. Just, you know, final words. You spent so much time with Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister. What are your words today for our allies, our friends in Israel, and for the prime minister?
I hope the Israelis, not just Prime Minister Netanyahu, but the people and all of the leadership will do what they know needs to be done. There is going to be enormous pressure, even, I'm afraid, from our administration. Do the hard work that is necessary to protect yourselves, and America will be with them.
Thank you so much, former Secretary of State Michael Pompeo, my boss. I think the best Secretary of State that we've had in modern history. So thank you, sir.